Hey, Redcasters, be sure to subscribe to our channel and ring the bell to be notified about our latest videos. Go Big Red. Welcome to the Forum, the show where we learn more about Husker Nation, one fan at a time, by asking the same four questions. I'm your host, Honke, and tonight our guest comes from the Centennial State. He is a stand-up comedian as well as the Keith County Fair Combine Demolition Derby announcer. Most important, he's a Husker fan. Welcome to the Forum, Jon Spurgfin.
Thanks for having me, Honke. Excited to be here. Excited to do this. I love the podcast. I listen to it all the time, so it's fun to get to be a part of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, we're winding down the off season of forums, but you emailed us about a month or so back with a really great story, and we wanted to try and fit you in here before we get to kickoff. You had I thought it was really interesting. I wanted to read it. This is part of the email you sent. You go, these are moments that are burned into my psyche as I'll never forget where I was moments for me as well. Where I was not at the stadium or a fancy watch party. I was in a cornfield actually harvesting corn. It got me thinking, what a great fan perspective. I mean, what is more pure than rooting for the Huskers while actually husking corn? I think that's kind of a different perspective than we've heard from other people, and very appropriate here. So I'm interested to get into that conversation. You also mentioned in the email that you created the greatest Nebraska T-shirt ever designed. I'm going to show it here, but tell us a little bit about this shirt here.
Yeah, I mean, I was driving in Western Nebraska, and I was just driving past Chimney Rock, and it's a cool formation. If you haven't been there, check out the Panhandle of Nebraska. You know, the Pine Ridge all the way up into the Black Hills. It's a great area, and I love driving through there. But I was just driving by, and I saw it, and it's just one of those things that, I don't know, I just thought of it. I was like, that's pretty funny. I was like, that would make a good T-shirt. And then, like, I would think about it every once in a while, or I'd be driving past and I would think about it. And then after about 4 years, I just decided to get 50 of them printed up. And so I printed up 50 and I put them on Facebook, and they sold pretty fast. So it was, I don't know, just kind of a fun thing to do. It's what a great T-shirt, right?
Yeah. Anyone that's listening to the show tomorrow, if you can't see it, it's a state of Nebraska with Chimney Rock out, of course, in the corner of it. And it goes, is that Chimney Rock, or is Nebraska just happy to see me or see you? And yeah, I think it's hilarious. How can people get one? I guess number one, if they see this shirt and they want to get one, how would they do it?
So I'm planning on getting another order in here soon. So you can just email me at Spurgfin, SPURGFIN at gmail.com. So.
All right. Well, cool. Redcasters, it's a great shirt. Shoot an email to him, man. That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, and yeah, that's kind of what happened is, it's just this big, and if you don't know what Chimney Rock is, I'm sure pretty much all the listeners do, but there are some from, even out of the country, I've heard. So Chimney Rock is this big phallic looking monument out in the middle of Western Nebraska, and it's right along the Oregon Trail. So it was a marker on the Oregon Trail for, people headed out that way. And it's named Chimney Rock. So you can imagine it's, basically a chimney looking thing coming out of the plains of Nebraska. And I just kind of thought, is that Chimney Rock, or is Nebraska just happy to see you?
There you go.
There you
go. Well, while we're doing promos here, I guess I finished off ours. We have Alumni Hall, 2 Lincoln locations, downtown 1120 P Street, South Point Pavilions behind Barnes & Noble. Next up, Pipeline Jerky. You can go to pipeline-jerky.com. Code REDCAST officially gets you 10% off, and all that money, we're talking NIL. This goes to rebuilding that pipeline, and let's get the offensive line back to where we were back in those glory years. One NIL purchase at a time. The new Redcast store, it's not even new anymore. I guess I should probably update that graphic, but On the graphic is the QR code. If you're listening to this, you can go to our social media pages, and the link is in our description. But Smack and Smooch, Shane and Laura out there in Elwood, quality apparel, custom made orders. I just got some more shirts from them in there now. And now, actually, I want to show this. I'm gonna go out of here. They just created the new Drink the Roulade koozies. They also, I think, have some shirts of that. And of course, that's Redcast Rob drinking the Kool-Aid, but Drink the Roulade. So you can find that on our store as well. And then last but not least, you're out there in Colorado. This is the Battle in Boulder. I'm not sure if it's sold out yet. I'm just still showing it because no one's told me to stop doing it, but it's up at Estes Park the night before the game in Boulder. So Friday, September 8th. If there are tickets still, try to get them. You can go to Big Red of the Rockies website. And Tommy Frazier, who we had on a couple weeks ago, he'll be there. Adam Carricker. It should be a great evening. It should just be a fun event and a great opportunity for Husker fans to get together there the night before the game. So, and tell me a little bit, before we were talking at the beginning, we were hearing some bangs and booms in the background. You're like next to like a golf simulator or something. Is that what it is?
Yeah. Yeah. So it's, I'm outside a closed coffee shop I frequent this place all the time. So, and they've told me before, if you ever need to work, we'd leave the Wi-Fi on. So just sit out on the deck. And right next door is basically a golf simulator. So, and that sounds like a little harsh for golf, but I suppose it's just the ball hitting against the wall or something like that.
Yeah. Hey.
So I apologize. I didn't think about the background noise. I really thought it was going to be a pretty quiet place because I know the coffee shop is closed.
Well, and that's one of the things I was telling you too. I can't always tell in my earphones. I can pick up everything, but I've done a show where I heard all these noises around, and then I go and I re-listen to it, and the microphones don't pick it up as bad. So you never know. I guess Redcasters, whoever's watching right now, if you're hearing anything in the background, let us know. But not that we can change it anyways. But let's get ahead. Let's get started with the Four'em. And what is the Four'em? It's the same 4 questions. Why are you a Husker fan? What is your favorite Husker fan memory? Who are your all-time favorite Huskers? And how do you think the Huskers will do this year? So let's start off, Jon Spurgfin, with the first question. Why are you a Husker fan?
A Husker fan. Well, I mean, I was born into it. So I was born in Western Nebraska. So, I mean, you definitely have exposure there. You definitely have the ability to get into it. But I think what really made it stick for me is, just through the 80s and 90s, I went to college in Lincoln in the 90s, and it was just the excellence of the team that they played with and how good they were. And it was kind of like they set the standard that you really wanted to like emulate in my own life. It was kind of like, I want to operate at a high level like they were. So you kind of become a fan because you like the way they do things. And then their success gives you a sense of inspiration too on just, trying to be the best you can be as well. So, and I think you see it like, I heard Coach Rule even say, like, he wants to be the coach for the state of Nebraska. And I think that's kind of what he's talking about is the hardworking, the work ethic, humble, put your time in. And I think that's what draws a lot of people to, be fans of it is it's a team that is doing things the way you want to do it in your personal life. And, it's a kind of a representation of it. And I think it's why our fans are so great too, and that honestly attracts more fans is, being humble and, polite, but also hardworking and wanting to go out there and really competitive, and you want to win too. So,
yeah, well, hardworking, like you said, you listen to games of the Cornhuskers playing while you're out there husking corn and working in the field. I mean, that's a great story by itself. You mentioned Western Nebraska, where you're from. We've had Redcast Amy on the show before, and I've known her since college years. She's from Hemmingford, and so way up there by Alliance. And it would always annoy her when somebody would say, I'm from Western Nebraska, and they'd say like Grand Island. She's like, that's not Western Nebraska. So when you say Western Nebraska, obviously you're a combine demolition derby announcer in Keith County out there in Ogallala. where are you from in
Yeah.
Western Nebraska?
So I grew up on a farm outside of in between Paxton and Sutherland, Nebraska.
Oh,
So
all
in
right,
between
that's out
North
west.
Platte and Ogallala. Yeah.
Oh yeah,
So
Ole's.
Ole's, that was my pictures on the wall in Ole's.
Hmm.
Uh, we're 1995 Class D1 state champion basketball team.
Oh, outstanding.
So
Well, next
yeah,
time I'm there,
so
I'll have to look for that.
yeah, it's good enough. Like our state championship photos back by the pool tables is where it was last time I was there. So
Mm. And as far as like
yeah,
the parents or the family goes, I mean, was it a grandparent? Was it a dad? Who got you kind of started on the Huskers?
yeah. My dad was a big Husker fan, and it was a little bit, it was one of those things. So my older brother, like, because I heard you tell the story about crying. I think it was you telling the story about crying after the '83
Yeah.
championship game. And so I don't honestly remember that one because I would have been, 6 at the time. But my older brother, he cried during that, like after that game. He kind of has the similar story as you,
Mhm.
but uh, it was, and then kind of going through once you got into high two, just playing sports, you were really busy, so it wasn't as much uh, listening to them. Like my dad was a big Husker fan, uh, and my, both like my grandparents were, and just kind of everyone around us. It was like, it's kind of something you would talk about. Just, you talked about the weather, you talked about the Huskers. And so really when I went to college that, uh, I really kind of like it got really deep seated in there as far as being a fan. I think
Mhm.
that's it was that era. My college era was the reason it really stuck. And it's 30 years later or however many years later now, and I probably pay way close of attention to it.
Yeah, no, I'm in the same boat with you, same age, where mid '90s and late '90s. That's when down there at UNL. What a great time to be down there. We watched one home loss in 5 years of
Yeah,
being at school there. Yeah, my first year, my memories is 1983,
Texas.
and the kickoff classic against Penn State in 1983, and every game since I pretty much have kind of remembered and watched and that's kind of led to where I am. Well, I think that's given me a lot of great
Yeah.
fan memories. That leads to number two here. Question two: what is your favorite Husker fan memory?
All right. Uh, well, so I do want to talk about like my greatest fan memories, but you kind of brought up so I'll just throw this out there because it's kind of
Mhm.
relevant now. The first game I ever went to was in 1986 in Boulder, Colorado, and it
That's a
was a
loss.
frustrating game that we lost.
20 to
Yeah.
10.
So my memories of that game are literally holding a balloon for almost the whole first half. And then we finally kick a field goal. And I look at my dad and I'm like, can I let go of the balloon now? Like, I wasn't for sure. I was expecting a touchdown. And then after the game, some CU fans were kind of like taunting, we're taunting, us. And I remember thinking like, we're just little kids. Like, why are you yelling at me? So that was the first game I went to because where I grew up, Boulder was closer than Lincoln was. So we thought
Sure.
it was a good idea. I got my first jersey. I wore my red suspenders, which I mean that's a good look as a little 9-year-old with a and red suspenders on. So, but I guess I was didn't work though. I guess they weren't my lucky suspenders.
Uh, that's
But
that's
that's my
that's in-
first fan memory.
that's incredible,
Um,
that game, because that I was 9 years old when that game went on, and we had only in my lifetime, if we lost to anybody in the conference, other than when I was one, we did lose to Missouri. But other than that, I it was only Oklahoma. We beat everybody else. And I can remember Dave and I on this show have talked about that game because it wasn't on TV. I remember listening to it on the radio as I'm shooting hoops in the driveway. And I
Yeah.
just couldn't believe that we were losing to someone not named Oklahoma in the conference. It just, and when the loss happened at the end of the game, I mean, I was just, I was without words. I was like, what just happened? How did we lose to somebody? How did we lose the Buffaloes? And I've had, unfortunately, two other kind of rough endings at a game there. We were there in 2019, and then we were there the 2001 debacle that kind of started the downfall for the Huskers.
Ooh. Yeah, that was a rough one. But yeah, that was my first game, and I was the same way where you're not expecting it. And so it was kind of like this letdown. And I just remember like just being so tired of holding on to that balloon like in the stands. That was because you're so excited about like getting to be a part of letting the balloons go. You know, you see it on TV and you hear about it on the radio. But so that was my first fan memory.
Well, what were some of your other ones?
But I did want to talk about. Yeah, well, I wanted to talk about like the fan memories of listening to games on the radio while you're out in the cornfield harvesting corn. It's two things that I really like. I do like harvesting corn is a fun process. It's a fun operation, and obviously, yeah, I love the Huskers. So, and it's kind of like just like I said, you know, when there's something pure about rooting for the Huskers while you're out there in the harvest field. You know, the machine, but you're literally harvesting corn. You know, you're running the machine that harvesting corn. And one story is the Hail Mary against Northwestern. And what year when?
What was that? What year that was?
Everybody remembers the game. Yeah.
Keep going. Sorry.
Yeah. So. Yeah, no, it's fine. We have like a little bit of a delay here, so I'm trying to be quiet and wait for you to respond sometimes, and I think you're the same. But I'll just keep talking here. So it's the Northwestern game. Everybody knows that there was only one Hail Mary game we're going to talk about, and that was the Northwestern one, and not the BYU one. But so it's Northwestern, and we're out there harvesting, and us. We kind of rotate through. Somebody drives the combine, somebody drives the grain cart, and somebody drives the trucks. And we have two trucks, and one of them has a radio that works, and the other one doesn't have a radio that works. So I'll drive, one from the field, empty it, and come back, and then get another one, drive it to the distribution center, empty it, and come back. So every other truck ride, I don't have radio to listen to. And it just happens that the end of the Northwestern game, I'm getting, probably maybe 5 minutes left in the game. I'm getting back to the field in the truck that has a radio. So now I have to jump into the truck. So it's radio silence for me. And I'm driving down, and it probably takes 10, 15 minutes to get to the elevator. And you stop on the scale, you go into the scale house, and then the girls in the scale house, they have the game going. So you get a little bit of an update there. And then you drive the truck up, empty it, and then you drive back. You get another update when you're at the scale house weighing empty, and then it's radio silence back to the field. So it's the end of the Northwestern game. I have to get in the truck that doesn't have a radio. So it's radio silence. I get to the scale house, and I kind of go, what's the update? How's it looking? And they're like, it's not looking good. It's not looking good. And I'm like, well, dang. So I go up to where we're unloading, and there's somebody that works up there to load the truck. And this guy, his name was Steve this night, and I'm sitting there talking to Steve, and I kind of give him the update. and we're not supposed to do this because you're supposed to be paying attention to what you're doing. And he's like, hey, you want to go hear how it's going? Yeah, there was a pickup by that had a radio. And I was like, yeah, let's do that. So we kind of abandon the post and we go and get in the pickup, and he turns the key on, and the radio comes on as they are snapping the ball for the last play, Hail Mary. So we don't have any real context of where the game's at this point. Don't know don't know that this is the last play of the game. Just hear the announcer say, the ball has been snapped, and then that play happens, and you're just kind of sitting there like dumbfounded. We're looking at each other. So did we just win at the end of the game? Like, we don't know what's going on. Like, there's been just like have no perspective on it, because it was literally the and then it was like we finally figured out that we'd win, and right then you could see that the truck was finished, so we kind of shut the radio off and got out and went on our merry way working. But it was just kind of like this surreal moment where we just went to the truck and turned it on right for the last play, like the only play that mattered, and then turned it off and had to continue on working. So I don't know. It's kind of fun, and there's a lot of camaraderie between the people working, the people at the scale house, other people in the cornfields, like, because everybody's listening to the game, but you're still trying to work and get stuff done. So I think it's kind of crazy to think about, like, all the fans scattered all throughout Nebraska on Saturdays during the fall that they just have to get work done, because it's harvest time. You have to get it out when you can.
Yeah, there's still work to be done.
That was a great.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So that was.
Go for it.
Do you have anything?
No. Okay. Go for it.
So the other one that was a crazy kick that I remember, and I got an Alex Henry jersey on right now, and his kick against Colorado to win the game, the 57-yarder, was an incredible thing to listen to on the radio. Because the other thing about the radio is so much more happens in your imagination. You're not watching it. And I feel like there's these emotional swings just throughout a play as you hear the radio announcer kind of go, and then, like, when they're back to pass and no touchdown, like those types of things where you get these crazy emotional swings not being able to see it. So that Colorado game, I mean, everybody probably remembers it. It gets down end and we get sacked to take us kind of out of field goal range. And, 4th and 25, and the announcers at the time were talking about trying to go for it on 4th and 25 because we're out of field goal range, and then they cut to commercial. And I'm actually in the part at this time, which is to be for the game because the least amount of responsibilities. There's always a radio that works, and for the most part, you're just sitting there listening, to the game. The only time that you really have to pay attention to what's happening is when the combine comes by and you pull it and it unloads on you while you're, the combine, the wheels never stop on that. You can get as much harvest done as possible. So they cut to commercial, right? And they're coming back from commercial right as the combine's coming up. And my dad's in the combine, and I'm thinking in my head, like, surely we're not going to unload right now. We're going to sit here and listen to this play. This is the ball game right here. And the way the sun is in the sky, I can't really see him. So I'm trying to look and, like, signal, like, is he going to tell me, like, hey, let's just stop or no? But he keeps going. So I'm like, okay, here we go. We're done. And obviously Alex Henry, kicks it and makes it, and I'm just losing my stuff in the middle. And I just about drive into the combine just because I'm going nuts, and I'm still trying to look over there because in my mind I'm like, we have to stop now. We have to stop and get out and run around and high five, and then we can, game. And really this long ways winning that game. And so finally we get done, and I can't figure out, the combine just keeps going. And so I call my dad, and I'm like, are you listening to this game? And he's like, no, I shut it off. I'm listening to the machine. Because, and that's how dedicated he was to farming, is he wouldn't listen to any of the radios while he was running the combine, because there's so many moving parts. You have to kind of listen, and you usually hear something go wrong in the combine before any of the lights or the sensors go on. And, a lot of times save you money in repairs and that sort of thing. But I was like, oh man, the discipline of you to not be listening to the game right now. And we had it recorded, and we were planning on watching it later, so he didn't really feel like he was missing out. But I remember being on the phone just thinking, I don't want to ruin it for you, but I guess we'll enjoy it later. And then just being out there in the middle of the field celebrating by myself.
Yeah. Well, Alex Henry is one of the great Huskers. Certainly, that was a great kick. Let's get to question number 3. Who are some of your other all-time favorite Huskers?
So I'm thinking about this. Like, the one name that really sticks out is Mike Brown. He was so good on defense, and you saw what he did in the pros, where he won multiple games by scoring touchdowns from a defensive or special teams plays for the Bears. But he was one of my all at the 1990 Fiesta Bowl against Tennessee, and they had T. Martin, and they were kind of billing that game, and we really just kind of dominated, and it was frustrating for the Tennessee fans. We had a couple Tennessee fans right behind us, and there was one play where this Tennessee receiver broke open, and it was right before half, and streaking down the sidelines, and they throw it to him, and that old Tennessee guy behind me was going, oh, there he is, because it looked like it was going to be easy score. And then out of nowhere, Mike Brown appears and intercepts the ball. And I'm kind of like a little bit of a smart Alex. So I said to my friends, there he is. And that was my favorite memory of Mike. Really, I think the defense runs the day on a lot of my favorite players. And I want to mention, like, just Levante David and Ndamukong Suh, the way they could take over games and change games from the defensive side. I remember at the time thinking, enjoy this, cherish this, because we're seeing something special right now. And really the same goes with Amir Abdullah, who I would put on that list too. He was, I remember thinking, like, okay, enjoy this. The way he ran was incredible. And just the story of, like, he was in a recruiting class with 2 4-star running backs. He was a 3-star guy, and he's the one that ended up kind of making it. So just kind of that hard work and dedication. So that's it for me. And I'm going to throw Cam Taylor-Britt out there too. I really enjoyed watching some of those seasons, even though they were frustrating. But that greatest 3-9 season ever, our defense was really good that year. And him and JoJo Domann were a part of it. And I remember seeing in an interview, they were asking him, like, does it get frustrated? Are you getting frustrated with the offense and that sort of thing? And Cam Taylor-Britt was like, look, I get to go out and play football every Saturday, the sport I love, and I get to go against the best receiver in college football week in and week out. And it was just a good perspective to have to like, I'm not mad at that at all. I'm happy to have the opportunity to be here. So that's a player you just like to have.
Yeah, those are all great players. I take every single one of them right now. Well, I take them all for this season, and I think that's a good segue into number 4, which is how do you think the Huskers will do this year? Obviously, there's a lot of change going on. We are now about 2 weeks halfway through, actually mostly through fall camp, but halfway through the August practices leading up to 8/31, as the coaching staff calls it. The game against Minnesota in 2 weeks on Thursday night. Tonight, right before this show, they released a look in part 2. So after you get done watching this, watch that if you haven't already. And it's a great breakdown of the second week of practice by the Husker Vision staff and everything. Just a great kind of behind the scenes look at what's going on. Practices and meetings. The team went down to Funplex in Omaha last week and had a day off to have some fun there. So just a lot of good things that was shown this week. They also talked about some of the walk-ons like Bullock and Borkircher that are getting scholarships this year. So a really good one. That's a look in. That's on YouTube and check that out, Redcasters. But John, what are your thoughts here going into year 1 of the rule era?
I think we're going to be good. I really think we're going to be good. I've been drinking the Kool-Aid for the last 7 years. I would stop now. Rumor has it there's an adult in the room now. So why would I think anything different? I mean, I think we're going to be good. Yeah, I've been drinking the Kool-Aid, and to say how good, I could see 9, 10, 11 wins if that. Because here's the thing, they say that there's an adult room. Well, we should be clear here that adult is not me. So I'm under no obligation to temper my expectations. So I think we're going to be good, and I think the schedule sets up really well to do that.
Yeah,
I think college. I mean, it's tough to say we're going to beat Michigan. Oh, go ahead.
Well, you were just saying there with Michigan. Yeah, that would be. There's going to be a couple games on the schedule that are obviously going to be hard ones to get. Michigan being one of them. At Wisconsin, that's been a kind of a bugaboo place for us. But really, a lot of the teams we played have been a bugaboo the last few years, especially in the West. We've not had a lot of success against the West teams. But I think it was College Football Home on Twitter tonight. They do previews of every team across FBS, and they did Nebraska's tonight, and they had us at 5-7 and losing to Purdue. So that was I guess that would be one of those make or break games. I've said all along, all offseason, I think it's the race to 6, and I think getting to 6 is really important, whether it takes us 6 weeks or 12 weeks. But we've got to get to 6 wins because we need to get back into the bowl games, and we need to reset that expectation. I think I don't put ceilings on the program. So when you said 9, 10, 11, I'm not going to say no. I mean, I just want to see this. I want to see good football. And they talked about that today in that a look in the week 2 of practice there for this fall camp. Coach Rule talking to the team about finishing games and putting them in situations like having a minute 15 left and you're down by 6, and he's talking to an offensive captain, a defensive captain, and says, hey, there's 35 seconds left and go out there, or a minute 15 left, and then we're at the 35-yard line, go out there and defense make a stop, offense make a play. And I like that. I mean, let's not let the game be too big. Let's make practice hard, and if you can do it in practice, then you can do it when you get to the game.
That's right. And I think like 5-7 just seems so pessimistic. Think about all the close games we've been in. It's not a total rebuild. Our players are good and our players want to. I think that's one big difference between what Matt Rule inherited at Nebraska and what he inherited at Temple is he didn't that want to win. They never gave up last year. They never gave up 2 years ago in any game or in any season. They just kept coming back and competing, and the effort was there. It feels like it's kind of one of those situations where there's talent on the team and they just kind of lost their way. It's if you think about like a talented individual that loses their way and is just drinking too much and that sort of thing, they just need to sober up a little bit and get some focus. And I think Rule's going to be able to do that for them. Because I heard that was one thing I heard Rule say that kind of that. Sorry, that was a truck going by. That stuck out to me as some of the players were going to him and saying, "Hey, you didn't win very many games your first year at Temple, your first year at Baylor. Kind of like we got some concerns with that, and obviously it's different situations, but I just think the players are there. It's not a total rebuild, and if we're just a little bit better, if we're marginally better, then we win a lot more games. There's not that many games even last year we couldn't have won. When you look at some of those losses, the Purdue game, the Illinois game, I can't even think of the other losses, but
Well,
I think there's a
there's
lot
a
of
bunch of them.
reasons to be.
Yeah. I mean, I don't know. We're cutting out a little bit here, but like to your point about the first year thing at Baylor and stuff, and the first year at Temple, especially for those people that say, hey, they went 1-11 or 1-10, 2-10. Boy, those same people, they don't understand trend lines. If you take a team from 1-10 and you leave them 10-1, yeah, over the course of 3 years, you're going to be a 500 coach, but you're leaving a program that much better than what you took over. The goal here, obviously, we all hope, and I know Coach Rule has talked about this not feeling like year one to him. This feels like a year two to him, that they've already last year kind of went through that year one, really with some of the tutelage, I guess you'd say, under Bill Bush and under Coach Joseph a year ago. But starting to make some of the right changes on the field. If that's the case, I mean, I think 6-7 wins. I think even Coach Rule is thinking that in his head minimum. I mean, I think he's thinking this feels like a year two, and his year twos have been in that 6-7 kind of win thing. Again, we're not putting ceilings on it, because if you start getting some wins, if you start getting some momentum, if they can win an early game, who knows? Who knows what can happen?
I just have a hard time thinking that it's going to be less than 6. I feel like 6 is the floor this season. I think, I mean, I've been drinking the Kool-Aid, but when the ball, like the pendulum will start to swing back the other way. The ball will start, you'll start getting those bounces, all the bounces that you weren't getting. I think Rule said that at a press conference recently, that the last time that our team has had a positive turnover was Riley's second year when they went 9-4. And eventually the ball is going to start bouncing your way, and it does that if you put the work in. And I think they're putting the work in now. I drank the Kool-Aid all through Frost, but stuff that's happening within the program was not at all what I thought was going on within the football program. So I'm just hoping that, with Rule is that they are putting in the work.
Well, and like you said, the pendulum, the ball bouncing a certain way. I mean, that's part of that is preparation. And when you prepare well and that's, the ball isn't always going to go your way. And we've had enough bad breaks and bad bounces, but we've also just, one of the things that we've had is mistakes. And we've made so many mistakes over the last 4 or 5 years. It has undone a lot of the great effort that I think I've seen at times. I think we've played with good effort, like you said earlier. I think we've had good talent. We've had, look at a guy like, look at Trey Oh my gosh, Palmer. Gosh, I was thinking Bryant in my head. Trey Palmer from last year doesn't get drafted at all, which has been a problem for Nebraska because when you don't do well, guys don't get drafted. But we've had a number of guys that don't get drafted get their chance, go on as a free agent somewhere, and there they are making the team and they're playing. Divine Zigbo's still playing right now, and we've had guys that have gone out there and shown well. There's talent and the effort, but it's the mistakes. We got to cut the mistakes, and that's what I think Coach Rule is all about. There's the adult in the room. We're gonna cut the mistakes. We're not gonna allow them to happen in practice, and if you cut them in practice, you're gonna hopefully cut them in the games. Are you able to hear that,
Yeah,
John?
you kind of cut out there at the end, but so I missed the last part of that. You kind of cut out, but you're exactly right. Cutting out the mistake and, just getting it up. And well, that's what they say. Early season wins games is not making mistakes. And the way the schedule sets up too works out well for us. We get Minnesota first, and that's a team I would rather play early than late. They had a lot of turnover on their offense, new running back, new quarterback, new offensive coordinators. So they've got some turnover, and we get them first. I think that's a good spot to get Minnesota.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, I agree, and get a win there. If they get a win there, that's the big if. If we get a win there, I think people start to look at those next 3 games, and if you can beat Minnesota on the road, you should be able to beat Colorado on the road. You should be able to win at at home against Northern Illinois, win at home against La Tech. We should be 4-0 when Michigan gets here. That's the mentality that I think people have. That's how important that first game is. Now, the reality is anybody that, if you've ever coached or played the game, the reality is if we beat Minnesota, if we do, the immediate focus has to go to Colorado, and you don't look past anyone. Nebraska, no matter what, is not good enough right now to be looking past any one of those first 4 teams. Take them one at a time and everything. But that Minnesota game, it changes the trajectory of a lot of things. If we can get through that first one, my goodness, the sky all of a sudden kind of looks like the limit, and you're already 1-0 in the West after that game.
Yeah, and that Colorado game, it scares me because I'm out here in Colorado, and I tell you what, done really well this offseason as well as far as their performance. Now, I don't think they could ever compete with Nebraska for any offseason national championships, but I feel like they won the offseason NIT tournament the way the Colorado fans have been latching on to Deion Sanders, and he's an elite individual. Like he's been successful wherever he's gone. And he happens to be one of those individuals that is kind of cocky, but if anybody's going to do it, it's you got to give it to Deion. Like he's been able to back it up. That annoys me a lot less than somebody who's can't back it up. So I don't know how he's going to do at Colorado, but that makes you nervous.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, he's going to try something different from what they've been trying to do before, and so you got to give them credit for that. He certainly has brought some enthusiasm there. You see it with their spring game attendance versus just the year prior. So there's definitely, I have no doubt that he's already been successful in that sense of just getting, Buffalo Nation kind of getting behind him. All that said, we're going to the first 2 games the Redcast are. We have 10 seats that we purchased just like a month ago, right in the middle of Minnesota section. We bought Minnesota seats, and we're going to be wearing red, and that's right in the middle of a game where they want to say it's a gold out. They've been telling their fans it's a gold out. And I can tell you at least 10 Yahoos are going to be standing right in the middle of it wearing red. And we've got our tickets already to Colorado, and that's the home opener of Deion. And with all the excitement and the 50,000 people they had in that spring game, I can tell you all of us that are coming from the Redcast are sitting in Colorado seats. We didn't buy a single Nebraska seat. We're all in Colorado sections. And I know we're not alone. I've heard from so many other fans already who have said the same thing. And I don't know what to say, what that means towards Minnesota and Colorado in terms of their fan base's excitement levels right now. I just know that Nebraska fans just can't be beat. They're going to show up no matter what. And the more times that the opponents say, "Hey, don't sell your tickets, don't do this. If you sell your tickets, we're gonna put you on a list or whatever." Doesn't matter. Every single time we find a way to get in there, and I can't wait. I cannot wait for those two games, and it's gonna be fun to start the season on the road.
Yeah, and I think that's the thing about Husker fans is there's a dollar amount where other fans, I mean, you saw it at Notre Dame back in 2001 or 2002 or whatever, but there's a dollar amount there that they suddenly think they're just being smart to get rid of their ticket and put some money in their pocket. And in their mind, they are, but that dollar amount is so much higher for Nebraska fans. So they think they're getting we think we're getting a good deal too. We're probably overpaying, but to be able to get a photo op like you had, in South Bend or Colorado a couple years ago, Husker fans are a lot more, a lot more excited to spend their money on that. So I just don't think they're going to be able to keep us out. It probably won't be as many as a couple years ago with the whole Dion thing, but there's still going to be a.
Yeah, I think it's tough for, Husker fans want to support this program so much, and they also want to be there when it turns. I mean, when this turns for the positive, everyone wants to say they were there at that moment. I've been to so many countless games the last 5, 6 years with that mentality in mind. Oh, we're going to this game because when we win this game, man, we're back on a national stage. And every time we've gone to those games, at least in these last 5, the recent history, it's almost always blown up on us. And so some people they go into a shell and they, I don't want to go to games anymore. I don't want to do that. I'm not that guy. I just still want to be there. I think that Rule can be the guy. I think Rule is absolutely well positioned to be the guy that can get us over that hump. And I absolutely want to be there for that game. When I'm going to the Minnesota game with the mindset that we're going to come back with a victory. Can we lose? Absolutely, we can lose. The only thing I'd be really devastated about right away with Minnesota is if we got pushed around, if they physically did, ran 7, 8 yards on us like they've done in the past. That would be a real issue I'd have. I'd have an issue with that right away because I feel like they've done the right thing strength and conditioning wise. They've certainly been physical in camp. They've said all the right things about wanting to be physical. If we lose to Minnesota, that's one thing. I mean, that's not the end of the season. But if we get pushed around right away in week 1, that would be the only thing that I think would really disappoint me.
Yeah, I agree with that. But I think in general, getting Minnesota first game, it's the best spot to get them because of all the turnover that is happening like on their offensive side. And if you remember their 11-win season a couple years ago, they didn't come out of the gates that great. There was a couple crazy good games, I think, against maybe North Dakota or some mid-level teams that they snuck out with victories at the beginning of the season. So they haven't always come out of the gates hot. And with all the turnover on the offensive side and the coaching staff, I think it's a good spot to get Minnesota.
Yeah, so many coaches have said this, and I completely agree with this, is that, early in the season, you win games by just simply not losing them, not going out of your way to lose them, by fumbling the ball, by jumping off sides, just playing smart football, playing good special teams, things that have absolutely not been the calling card of Nebraska the last 3, 4 years. And that's why we've lost some of these early games. I think of Northwestern last year. I think of the Illinois disaster 2 years ago. Don't beat yourself. Minnesota is going to be good enough. You don't have to beat yourself. Just try to beat Minnesota. and make smart plays in special teams. Don't go, keep the penalties down to a minimum. Turnovers, got to hold on to the ball. You got to, if the ball's in your hands, you got to catch it. Simple things like that. If the punt's coming to you and you're at the 2-yard line, you don't try to catch it. I mean, there's a lot of things that just game one, don't beat yourselves. And I hope defensively that we don't try to do anything too crazy against Minnesota. We need to tackle well. We need to line up. We need to be physical. We need to take blockers on. And then when we get some one-on-one tackling opportunities with all the contact they've been doing in practice and the tackling they've done, we need to tackle well. If we do that, I think we're going to be fine. I really do. I'm not guaranteeing a win. I think we'll be fine.
I think the general philosophy on offs this year is going to help our defense as well, because statistically our defense hasn't looked that good, but they've been a lot better than they've looked because our offense has kept putting them back on the field quickly in tough situations. And I think especially early in the season too, just the offensive mentality of running the ball more, just giving, because that's the thing, some of the best defenses in the country, well, they were having 15, 20 less snaps a game than our defense. So there's no way you're going to be able to rank that highly when you're having to play that many more snaps. And so I think just the offensive philosophy is going to help our defense look good. And I think our defense has good. So I think they're going to look really good this year.
That is certainly the hope there. And it's playing complementary football. So on offense, taking clock, giving your defense some breaks, playing good special teams, get yourself set up with good field position, win the first couple possessions, just field position wise. That's a victory. If you're 2 possessions into the game and it's still 0-0, but you flip the field, maybe they kicked off to you first and you were playing out of your 10 and 20-yard line, but by the 3rd or 4th possession, now they're playing out of their 10, yard line, and you flip the field. That's an early win, even if the points haven't been scored yet. Win the situations, win some of that, play complementary football at the right times, and stick with the run game. If something, it's old school Nebraska football, but if you're getting 2 and 3 yards in the first quarter, if you can stick with it, you can be getting 5, 6, 7, 8 yards by the 3rd and the 4th quarter. Now, one of the ways you can stick with it is your defense has to keep you in the games. If you fall behind by 2, 3 touchdowns, all of a sudden the ball gets thrown around all over the field. We've seen that a million times, and sometimes your physical game plan goes out the window. So defense has to keep you in it. Special teams has to play their role with giving you good field position. Offense has to be consistent and patient, continue to pound the ball. It's not rocket science. And I think sometimes we've had teams in the past that have tried to make it so much smarter, so much harder than it needs to be. We have some talent. We've been arguably the recruiting rankings would tell you that we've been the most talented recruited team in the West for, the last 10 years, but none of that has seemed to matter because we get to games and we make mistakes and do things that we shouldn't do. I don't envision that being the issue under Rule. I really don't. He has a track record of not having that be the issue, of fixing those issues. I'm busting at the seams right now. I cannot wait to get this season started.
I agree with you. I'm just like nervous anticipation to see what we look like. And, if we can beat Minnesota and beat Colorado and just at least split those, win at least one of those, I think is going to be big. But if you beat Minnesota, it's kind of look out. The Kool-Aid's going to be getting drank, and we're going to be getting on the Husker train, on the Husker train for sure. And we'll see if it.
I'm having you cut out a little bit here, John. So I just clicked the parting shots graphic to come up here, but we can keep going here. But I'm going to kind of, give my parting shot, and then I'll give the floor to you. You can chat us out here, but I want to thank you, number one, again, for coming
Okay.
on. I want one of those shirts, the Chimney Rock one. I think that's awesome. And I'm just excited for the season and for the Colorado game. We're going to be going out there. So contact us, and yeah, it'd be great to tailgate and do everything in real time, right next to each other. I know sometimes these shows we get a little bit of lag. So, but it's been great to have you on here. I'm giving you the floor, man. You take it.
Great, thanks. Yeah, absolutely, and we'll definitely make contact. I guess I think I started saying, then I cut out too. The With the offensive philosophy, it's going to be really interesting to see what happens at Wisconsin. Uh, with their change in philosophy, I don't think their defense is going to look near as it has, because they lost a great defensive coordinator for one thing, but then two, just the philosophy on offense to air raid it out. And this statistic that I wanted to bring up here about their quarterback. Oh, I'm blanking on his name here.
The transfer from
Tanner
SMU.
Mordecai.
Hmm.
Yeah, so Tanner Mordecai's touchdown to interception ratio is 76-23, which is incredible. However, if you look at just the games against Power 5 opponents or bowl eligible teams or teams that are ranked. So, the lower level teams, but if they're ranked. So against Power 5 bowl teams and ranked teams, his touchdown to interception ratio is 14-13. So it suffers significantly when he's playing a little bit stiffer competition, and he's always been in the South. Now he's going to go to Wisconsin, where you have to deal with some weather adversity as well. So I think we get them at a good schedule too. So that's another interesting thing we'll see how that plays out. And I don't know if you want to comment on that, but I did have a parting shot too. Since I'm in Colorado, I wanted to take a shot at them. But
I think that's a great point you made there about the Wisconsin quarterback. The elements matter. We see that all the time. I'm an anti-SEC guy, because the SEC has absolutely set themselves up with the best of all worlds. They play every game down south. They play neutral site games against teams that have to travel 10 hours, and they have to travel 10 minutes, and they play bowl games next to their home. I mean, everything is set up for success. And sometimes if you get teams out of their comfort zone, they have to play somewhere else, they play differently. No doubt a guy, like to your point, if he's playing against Power 5 conference competition, and he's playing down south, and now you're taking him out of that and you're playing different competition. Yeah, those stats can look very different. So we'll see. I'm interested in it, but yeah, take it away, man.
All right. So yeah, for the parting shot, I wanted to, I guess, take a shot at Colorado. Like I said, I did want to give props to Deion Sanders, Coach Prime. I'm fascinated to see what they do there. I'm kind of rooting them in a way. Besides, obviously, the Husker one game, the next 2 games, the next 2 years, and then we'll see what happens after that. But one thing that makes Colorado fans like giddier than anything else, and this is why I think they're going to sell a lot of their tickets, is when they can feel smarter than Nebraska fans, and not makes them laugh like a little schoolgirl than mentioning that the N on the helmet stands for knowledge. The N is for knowledge. And living out in Colorado, I hear that all the time, which I think is hilariously ironic, because their mascot is a buffalo, and buffaloes aren't native to the Americas. That's an American bison. Buffaloes don't exist in the United States. So I think it's hilarious that they make fun of the N for knowledge, and they can't even get anatomically or animal-atomically or whatever the term would be correct mascot for their team. And I can say animal-atomically correct because might as well own it, right? The N is for knowledge.
Well, there you go. I'll accept it. So, Jon Spurgfin, thank you so much for your time tonight. Thank you for emailing us and reaching out to us. It's been great to have you on here. I hope that we can meet up when we get out there to Colorado. And I just, that's the thing with the forum. I love having fans from all the different areas and different backgrounds. And I think you brought a great one too. Really appreciate it, Husker fans, Redcasters. I hope you enjoy it. We are just over 2 weeks away from the kickoff of the season. So I have one last forum to go after this. It's going to be when I'm in Minnesota with Vegas Jer, who we're going to be staying at. The Redcast will be staying with Vegas Jer, and they're going to be golfing the TPC. Some of the other guys, Skip and Rob and Dave, while Mac and I go drinking. So anyways, have a blast, Husker fans. It's almost there. Keep your head on here for the next 2 weeks, and the Huskers are going to be kicking it off. But thank you so much, Jon. And until the next time, you could be the next one to join us on the forum.
A Herd at Sports Network production.